Well, shalom, everyone. Thank you for gathering with us again for TLV Talk. I'm Rabbi Mark Greenberg with the Tree of Life Bible Society.
And I am Mandie Greenberg Cook, and this is my awesome dad. So
this is my awesome daughter. So there. This week's parsha is, we're really welcoming to talk about this because there's a lot of missing info, a lot of white space in most believers' lives when it comes to the story of what you would know as Balaam. It's really Balaam, the correct pronunciation. And this is the story of Balaam in Numbers 22, 23, 24.
And the parsha is called Balak. Why is it called Balak, Dad, when it's about Balaam?
Balak was basically a
pagan prince
who had called Balaam, who had a reputation of being able to curse or bless anyone and it taking hold and effect.
Wow.
And so Balak calls Balaam, and this is where, and when he calls to him, he sends his messengers, and after that he gets on that donkey, and the donkey goes ballistic and crushes his foot, and this is where the angel of the Lord appears again.
So this is where we get Balaam's donkey.
This is where we get Balaam's donkey, but the theme of it is much deeper than that. This is at the place after Balaam's donkey that the angel of the Lord reveals the God of Israel to Balaam.
Ooh.
And in that revelation, he discovers that he truly is the supernatural God, the God of Israel.
Wow, very cool.
Okay? And in doing so, and after that, that's where Balaam goes to meet up with Balak, and instead of cursing Israel 3 times, he blesses Israel 3 times. You can find that in the pages in chapter 23.
Of Numbers.
But in chapter 24, there's the ultimate blessing. The first 2, God actually speaks to Balaam. And then in the 3rd time, it says here, the Ruach Elohim, meaning the Spirit of God, or the Holy Spirit, actually speaks to Balaam. And I want to just read this portion of his oracle that he speaks out. And he says, "This is the oracle of Balaam, son of Beor, and the oracle of a strong man whose eye has been opened to the God of Israel.
Nice.
The oracle of one hearing God's speech, one seeing Shaddai's vision."
Shaddai, the
mighty-breasted one, speaking of the God of Israel. "One fallen down, yet with eyes open."
Wow.
Obviously, when he fell down with the crushed foot. And he says this, and this is stated in every synagogue around the world. Mm-hmm. Every time there's a service. "How lovely are you tents, O Jacob, and your dwellings, O Israel." Matovu.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can you sing it?
Matovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael.
And you will hear that melody in synagogues all around the world. Messianic or rabbinic Judaism. And then he goes on in verse 6 and says, "Like valleys that are spread out, like gardens beside a river, like aloes planted by Adonai." So he's acknowledging God here. Tetragrammaton. "Like cedars beside the waters, water will flow from his buckets, his seed by abundant water. His king will be greater than Agag.
Oh.
His kingdom will be exalted. God is bringing him out of Egypt. He is like a strong horns of a wild ox. He devours nations hostile to him. He will crush their bones. His arrows will pierce them. He crouches like a lion or a lioness. Who would rouse him? He who blesses you will be blessed, and he who curses you will be cursed." And this was the oracle, you could even call it a prophetic unction in today's world, that Balaam stated before Balak. And of course, Balak is like ballistically angry.
Yeah, of course. I would be too if I paid for something and it didn't happen. But I'm kind of happy. And the thing that you said earlier about the blessing 3 times and the warnings 3 times, I think that there's something to be said for listening to the
Right.
warnings that God puts before us. Because for me, imagining like this is not someone from the country of from the nation of Israel. This is not someone whose God
Right.
is Adonai Elohim. Balaam is a pagan oracle. He's not a follower of Adonai or El Shaddai at
That's
the time.
correct.
He's not when Balak first goes to him.
That's right.
And so he starts with this, I'm getting paid for a job and I'm going to go do it. But then
he was like a spiritual hitman.
wow,
He was.
that's deep.
He was like a spiritual hitman.
Wow. So, but then on the way to this assignment, he gets warned by God to not do it.
Through a donkey.
Through
the angel of the Lord.
And so God puts warnings in our paths, even if we don't necessarily believe in him or follow him.
Right.
There are things that God does. And if I'm remembering correctly, even Yeshua gave warnings to his disciples.
Absolutely, he did.
And so I think it's in John 18.
Yeah, specifically the disciple that comes to my mind is Peter.
Yes. Simon Peter.
I don't know if you, or Kepha, whichever way you want to look at it. I most identify with him because, I'm a little hard-headed like Peter. Not a theologian or a Pharisee or a Sadducee, even like Paul was. And Peter was really just a fisherman, a commoner, who God gave such understanding of who Yeshua is and walked with Messiah.
Yeah. So one of the things that's really, really interesting is that I'm remembering that it's Peter that Yeshua said, get thee behind me, when Peter was trying to kind of be like, no, God, you can't. Don't do that. Oh my God, don't do that.
I will prevent you from going to that tree.
Yeah,
that you just
exactly.
spoke of.
So Yeshua warned Simon Peter, if you're going to get in my way, you have to get out of the way. And then he warns him again about keeping his emotions in check when Yeshua was arrested in chapter 18. And so Yeshua says, it's in verse 11, Yeshua said to Peter, put the sword into the sheath. The cup the Father has given me, shall I never drink it? And meaning, I mean, are you going to keep me from doing what God has given me to do again?
Right.
And then, when he was when he was talking during the last Seder, he had that warning of, you're going to betray me 3 times.
Oh, my gosh.
And so
wow.
Peter is very emotional. He's very stubborn. He's probably the most relatable because he has the best character arc.
Yes.
Because he goes from this very nothing, fishers of men kind of dude who's very volatile. And then eventually he becomes one of the greatest apostles of the time. Right. And we still look to his writings for help. So the fun thing is that even Yeshua's disciples had to have warnings.
That's right.
I mean, we have to have warnings. The Proverbs are full of warnings.
Correct. And here's our issue or I should say our challenge.
Our challenge.
Our challenge as believers is, do we have the eyes to see? Do we have the ears to hear what the Spirit is saying in those kinds of warnings? Are we really listening? Are we really looking at stuff? So this is a example of between Balaam and, of course, Peter, of how do we heed warnings?
Yeah. And the thing that comes to mind is there's a verse in Ezekiel 3 where it talks about how if a righteous person does righteous acts and follows a path of righteousness, then they will live and not die.
Right.
And that is our goal. Our goal is to live really, really strong,
the
brilliant
wages
lives.
of sin is death.
Correct.
I mean, sin does bring death eventually.
And righteousness is following God, and it brings life. So follow the righteousness of God today and do whatever it takes to heed the warnings in your life.
That's
Remember, the warnings that you should pay attention to are the ones that come from God, not the ones that come from the television or the internet.
That's right.
Because those are not the best warnings for you. Sometimes they're great, but most of all, the warnings from God are the ones we need to pay attention to. So Have a great day, everybody. Make sure that you get to your community and worship God together.
That's right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Shalom.